Hi there, I'm Timmy, and this is Timmy Wah and what have you. I've got my lovely wife Rachel with us today again. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Love this woman. She's beautiful. All right, today we've got time for just one attraction. So last week we covered the Astro Orbiter and we covered Star Tours. This week it's all going to be about Space Mountain. And Space Mountain easily, I think, for me, our favorite ride.
Favorite ride.
At the entire Disneyland Resort, California Adventure included. Other than the train, it's our go-to ride. Like we're running. Before Max Pass, we were physically running to get in line or get fast passes for Space Mountain because it's so fun. And now Rachel's not really much of a roller coaster person. She's getting more and more into it, but because we'll talk about it, but because the way it doesn't have big drops and loop-de-loops and stuff like that, she just loves it. And you've loved it your whole life, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think every time still get jittery my first time. Like, am I sure I can handle this? But of course I can.
But isn't it that right? Why it's fun?
Yeah.
Because if it didn't do that to you, you'd probably just be like any other ride. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And I fell in love with Space Mountain. I keep wanting to call it Star Tours. Space Mountain, the first time I rode on it. And it's just so much fun. The way it's completely dark. And there's a lovely, amazing soundtrack. And just the way Disney did it is awesome. So let's get started. Let's talk about Space Mountain. Do you want to go and get us started?
Okay. So Space Mountain first opened Memorial Weekend. So May 27th of 1977. So for me, I wasn't even born yet. This old timer was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
The celebration featured astronauts from the Mercury 7 when it opened. That was, like I said, Memorial Day weekend, and the attendance that weekend broke all kinds of records. There were 185,500 guests that weekend.
And if you're interested, you can look up the Mercury 7 you can Google them or Wikipedia. That was a space project that NASA did, and that was kind of a cool thing to have them be part of that opening celebration.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. In 1997, it was repainted green, gold, copper, and bronze to match the new Tomorrowland theme. And the speed ramp was removed.
Do you remember the speed ramp?
I don't remember the speed ramp.
So if you think of Disney World right now, to get up to the People Mover, you got on a rolling sidewalk.
Yep, I remember that.
So they had that.
I do remember that.
To get up into that main upper level,
yeah.
which is pretty much empty now.
I
the
do
outdoor,
remember that, yeah.
So they removed that year.
Okay.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
That was back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't know if I remember that, but.
So, in 2003, in April of 2003, it closed to do a complete overhaul of the track. Overhaul and replacement of the track, and it reopened in July of 2005, and they also repainted it back to its original white color. And for that celebration, when it reopened, Neil Armstrong was on hand, so that's pretty cool.
That's pretty amazing.
I would have liked to have been there for that one.
That would be killer.
So, for Disneyland, and I will say this, so for Disneyland, at Disneyland's Space Mountain, the riders sit 2x2 side by side like this. But I'll give you a little tip. Disney World's Space Mountain, they actually sit front to back. So it's everyone single file like this. And I heard that, I think it's Paris. I don't know if I'd be so hot to ride the one at Paris, because I heard that the one at Paris, they actually just blast you straight up.
Yeah, it's a big launch.
Yeah. And I think I'd have to work my way up to that one. As much as I love Space Mountain, I think I'd have to work my way up to that one. So anyway, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there.
So thinking of that, we're gonna derail the video for a second because that's an interesting thought. If we were able to go to Disneyland Paris for one day, would you do it? Would you ride Space Mountain?
Probably.
You only had one day.
Probably.
Okay,
but...
all right.
Okay.
Okay, good. Go on.
Okay, so riders sit by two by two, and they're blasted through complete darkness. So that is part of the reason why I am able to do it, is because it's in complete darkness. I don't see the track in front of me. I don't see what's coming. I don't see, there's a couple little tiny drops, but I don't see them coming. And so that's part of the reason why I can handle it, is I don't see that, oh my goodness, I could fall at any minute. Of course, you don't fall, but you know what I mean. So it's complete darkness other than the stars all around you. And it always has an exciting sci-fi soundtrack that adds to the fun.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, because that's part of the reason it's in complete darkness is also part of the reason why it's so fun.
Absolutely.
Because the next little factoid I'm going to read here is basically that the top speed that roller coaster reaches is just 30 miles an hour, which compared to most of your roller coasters now, they're going 60 and 70, and some are ridiculous, but your typical roller coaster is like
so
at least twice than that. So that's ironic that the darkness is part of the illusion, and the soundtrack and the stars that are swooshing by, because they're not just static stars.
No.
They're projected and they move. And it's all part of the illusion to make it feel like you're going really fast.
Yeah.
And there's wind because they have like air conditioners blowing on you. So it's all part of the illusion. It's awesome. So that's kind of funny that's your reason why you can handle it. It's ironic. So anyway, so 30 miles an hour is the top speed. And because, like I said, because of the darkness, because of the swooshing stars in the background and the soundtrack, it all just feels so much faster and so much more exciting. It's so fun. Classic Space Mountain. You've got to experience it. So other than the classic standard Space Mountain, there's been several overlays, and some of them are still going on today. And let's start though at the very beginning. The first overlay, and again, this is Disneyland, so I don't think the one in Disney World has overlays, from what I understand. That may change in the future, or I might be completely wrong, but from what I understand, they don't do overlays at Disney World. So at Disneyland, the first one they did was back in grad night in the year 2006, and they premiered basically just a nighttime overlay, which pretty much just changed the soundtrack to a more hard rock kind of a vibe. So they didn't change the ride, they didn't change the projections inside the ride, and it was just at nighttime. They just changed the soundtrack, and I think they were trying to appeal to the younger kids that are in school and college that had grad night celebrations. And then the following year, in early 2007, which, if you remember, was their big Year of a Million Dreams. Do you remember that promotion?
Remember that.
And so they gave away 1 million prizes that year, and that was a big promotion they did during that year. And I think it went on for a couple of years actually. But one of the things they did is they created the overlay Rockin' Space Mountain.
Yeah.
And Rockin' Space Mountain featured
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
several tunes from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which were amazingly hot back in the day. They did what were the songs? I can't remember. I have to look that up. I meant to write it on the board and I didn't. So that was a big one, and that was pretty fun. I remember that, honestly. Like, I remember that being cool. And then the next one you found out was a couple years later in 2009. They debuted during Halloween time, Space Mountain Ghost Galaxy. Now, Space Mountain Ghost Galaxy is fun, and I think they did a really good job with it, because they changed a lot. They changed the videos that are in the queue to be like, there's like, it's almost like there's static, like something's trying to take over the transmission, and then the big video screen in the main ride area where you're in the queue inside. The big board is that same thing, where you get like this static and this interference, and then you get like this generic space feed. So it's kind of cool. So Ghost Galaxy is fun. There's also in the ride a new soundtrack that's really spooky, and they project these images of this alien ghost, and it's going throughout the whole ride. It shows up in different places, and it like swipes at you, and it roars, and it's kind of cool. And the one thing I noticed is that because of the additional projections and the effects that they do, the ride seems a lot more lighter. Like you see more. It's not like light by any means, but it's lighter.
Not quite as dark.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of fun.
Black,
and I think they have to balance the scariness of this ghost chasing and attacking you with having such a dark environment. So that's kind of fun the way they did that. So Space Mountain debuted during Halloween time in 2009, and it's come back every Halloween, with the exception of this year, 2019. They haven't done it this year because they're still doing Hyperspace Mountain, which is what I'll talk about next.
Yes. Okay.
And Hyperspace Mountain was debuted in 2015 in November to help celebrate the release of the movie Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And they also had what was the Season of the Force, and that was a big promotion in Disneyland and Tomorrowland in particular. And so same kind of thing. They put new videos in the queue with Admiral Akbar giving you the briefing and the safety instructions, and so that was cool. And then when you ride the ride, you launch to the Star Wars theme. And then you hear all the radio communications between Red Leader, Gold Leader, Blue Leader, and you're launched into a star battle. And you hear the classic "It's a Trap."
It's a trap.
By Admiral Akbar, because you're flying into this space battle that they weren't expecting. And same thing, you get projections up on the walls of big, Star Destroyers and X-Wing fighters and Y-Wing fighters and all this, and laser shots are going around you. Again, the soundtrack is all on the Star Wars John Williams theme, and it's super fun. Like, if the standard Space Mountain attraction is fun and exciting and exhilarating, this amps that up. If you're a big Star Wars fan, like, it just gets your heart racing, and all of a sudden the ride's over and you're like, oh, no. So it's really cool. And at the end of the ride, you'll know it's the end of the ride because all of a sudden you take a left turn, and then you get the big flash where they take the ride picture of you. So be sure you get your ride pictures after that ride. So that's kind of like a summary of the overlays that we've seen at Space Mountain. And again, mostly at Disneyland. I don't think the other parks do overlays as much. So that's pretty cool for us Disneyland folk that love Disneyland, and that's pretty cool. So real quick, a few facts and figures.
I do want to say a couple things real fast before you go on
please.
to the kind of nitty-gritty standard stuff. A couple years ago, they did make some changes to the queue line.
Oh, right.
So it's kind of more interactive. But I'll be honest with you. The way we do Disney, if you followed us, the way we do Disney is we don't really stand in the queue line. So we've actually never been in the new queue line where it's all indoors. It's no longer up top outside. It's now indoors. And we've actually never been in it because we strictly do Fast Pass, Max Pass, or single rider.
Yep.
So we can't even tell you what the queue line is like, though we've heard that it's pretty cool. So we'll be honest there. But as Tim said, there is a picture at the very end, so try to get a good pose for that. As he said, it's after the left-hand turn, so you do 3 right-hand turns super fast, and then a left-hand turn, and then bam, there's your picture. So don't forget to pose for that. And yeah, we've ridden it just a few times. And don't be afraid to split up your group on this one. As you get closer to the end of the line, they'll come through and ask, any parties of 2, any parties of 2. So even if you have a big party there, don't be afraid to say, yeah, we'll split up and do only 2, because then you'll kind of get to the front a little bit faster. Oh, at Disney World, though, the picture is at the very beginning. So the picture is kind of before you even take off. It's very strange. So it's kind of hard to pose like with a scary face because you've just gone super fast, because the picture is at the very beginning before you've even gone fast. So just a little hint there.
Thank you.
And then what else was I going to say? We'll talk about where single rider is in just a minute.
Okay.
Oh, front of the ship versus back of the ship. This is one where it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different of a ride if you're at the front versus the back versus the middle. So don't be afraid to ask if you've never experienced all 3 of them. Don't be afraid to say, hey, can I have the front? Hey, can I have the back? And they'll do their best to accommodate you. They'll say, okay, stand over here to the side for a minute. You may have to wait longer. But... Yeah, you might have to wait a little bit longer. They'll say, stand over to the side a minute, and then they'll put you in the front row in just a minute. But try it out. Experience it once or twice so that you can see which row you like better. But those are just some good points that we like to suggest to people. But go ahead.
Cool. All right. So here's just some facts, some quick facts about the ride. We talked about how it opened in 1977. So the average ride length is about 5 minutes. When I was researching this, I found anywhere from 4 minutes and 32 seconds to 5 minutes and 15 seconds. I just average it out. Expect about a 5-minute ride. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good ride length.
Yeah.
They don't allow wheelchairs. They do have a handicap loading area where they'll sub out a train, a rocket ship, for those who need to wait. And they're with a handicap group, so they'll shuttle out a train and shuttle in one, and they'll do that for you. So that's pretty awesome.
And go in through the exit to get to the handicap entrance.
Exactly. We have a 40-inch height requirement. So if you're less than 48 inches, again, use
40 or 48?
40.
Okay.
40. Thank you. No expecting mothers, of course. Use the ride swap program. They do have Fast Pass and Max Pass, so please take advantage of that. And they do have single rider. Now, if you go in through the exit like we just talked about, so off to the left, you see the little vending where they sell the shirts and sodas, and off to the right are the restrooms. Straight ahead, past the ride photo displays, is right across on the back of the hallway. You'll see a sign.
Left.
It'll say single rider and it'll point left. Now, if that sign isn't there, you may have to ask if they're actually currently doing single rider. But I haven't seen since they started doing it. I haven't seen them not do single rider.
And it's pretty fast.
Oh yeah, it's great. So you go down the hallway, you go to the left, you go around a corner, and you're right there in the loading area. And the people doing all the counting and ride loading pick you and say, I need a single rider, line 6, single rider, and they'll tell you exactly. So just pay attention, and you'll get right on. So single riders, it's awesome.
And that's pretty new. That's only been in like the last year or so that they've been doing it. So it's awesome that they started doing that for Space Mountain.
Yeah, and you can expect in standby, using the regular standby queue, at least 30 to 70 minutes, and we've seen it longer. I remember looking at the app, and I've seen it up to a couple hours, which is crazy. It kind of just depends on what else is going around in the park. Like if things are closed, and that's one of the only rides that's open, that happens. But typically, expect at least 30 to 70 minutes wait time if you use standby.
Sometimes, and again, I say we've never stood in the new queue, which is true, but before the new queue, I remember times where we would come in, and before Max Pass too, I'll say that. We would come in, we'd run and get our Space Mountain Fast Pass, and the line would be like 5 minutes long, so then we'd get in line and ride it, and then go we'd ride it standby, and then we'd go do it with our Fast Pass. And of course, that was before Max Pass. I think now that everyone has Max Pass, for some reason the lines seem longer now. I don't know, but the lines are longer. So again, we've never had that opportunity to do that again. But so pay attention to that. Like, even though you have a Max Pass for that ride, that doesn't mean you can't just get in line and go ride it and, ride it a couple times and still go use your Max Pass and ride it over and over again. So we've done that before. And someday we do have to go stand in the queue just so we can see what it's all about.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so because even though these lines and wait times are really long, it's not because they don't have the capacity. Because if they're running all 11 of their rockets, which is how many they have, if they're running all 11 of them, they can push through over 2,000 riders an hour. So, I mean, They've got that capacity. So you got to understand that it's not because the ride is slow. It's not because they're pushing people through fast enough. It's because it's that popular of a ride. So I think the number is 2,057 riders per hour if they're using all 11 rockets. And I don't know. They may or may not. Yeah. Depends on the time of day. Depends on demand. They can adjust how many rockets they're putting into the system. And the neat thing is, and this is kind of the last fact, is from 1977 when this was first launched. It was the first computer-designed track and the first computer-controlled roller coaster system ever. And if you think about it, it's really complicated to get the timing down for 11 roller coasters on one. It's a fairly small track. So there's got to be some really amazing calculations and computations going on to make sure these trains don't run into each other. So
next time it breaks down, don't get too upset. Don't be like, what is going on? Think about
a lot to
There's
manage.
a lot going on, yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to know more, there's a channel on YouTube I watch called Technology Connections. Just search for it, and they have a ride. They have a video specifically about Space Mountain and the computer controlled aspect of it. So check that out. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description below. But yeah, so that is Space Mountain, and this probably went really long, but there's so much that we love about this ride, and there's so much history, and there's so many details about it that we wanted to make sure we shared with you, so you have it kind of in your quiver of information when you take your next trip to Disneyland.
I'll say one more thing. When you first start to leave, after you have pushed your bar up to make sure it's locked, wave hi to the people up top and see if they wave back to you. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
They're not animatronics. They're actual
not.
people.
They're actually real people controlling it.
We've actually kind of made it a kind of an unwritten, until we just spoke about it now, kind of an unwritten challenge or game to see if we can get the people to wave back.
See how many people we can get to wave back. Yeah.
We do that through the whole park, though. Like if we're on the railroad, or if we're riding on the boat, or anything where people will wave. We try to get Pirates of the Caribbean. We always try to get the people dining at Blue Bayou, and it's been such a challenge lately. They're so busy eating. Like, how dare they?
But yeah, how the train goes through Splash Mountain. We always try to, when we're on Splash Mountain, we wave at the train. When we're on the train, we wave down at Splash Mountain. So It's always a challenge. Like one of those, when you're at Disneyland, see who could spot someone they know first.
Right,
like
if you recognize somebody.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap this up, because I think we've
gone
just
really long.
gone to death on it, but I hope you enjoyed it. Our next video, so Friday, I have an awesome video that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to go film it tomorrow, and I don't want to tell you too much about it, but it's another car review, so I'm excited about that. Follow our Facebook page. I'll have all the links and stuff below, and I'll tease about that for the next few days. So Friday, we'll have a video about a car review, and then our next Disney video next Monday, we're going to continue our travel through Tomorrowland, and we're going to hit Buzz Lightyear, and we're going to hit Autopia. So stay tuned for that. Also remember, in a few weeks, we're going to be going to Disney World ourselves. So I'll probably do, some live events, and I'll make sure I post that in advance as we plan to do that. And then I'll probably take up some Friday videos to just play some stuff we recorded throughout the day, because Disney World is just going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be amazing. And it's been about 4 years since we've been, so it'll be exciting for us because so much has changed. We did book some awesome fast passes, so Avatar, and just some of the stuff that's just brand new that we really want to experience. So we're looking forward to that. So again, Friday, a car video. Monday, more Tomorrowland adventures, and we will see you guys then. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.